Today on Context, why conscience finds its way into the news.
What is right and what is wrong? And do we all have that thing inside of us that acts as a moral compass? In this edition of Context, Lorna takes us on a deeper journey into our conscience, why we have one, and what it means for those of us who are without one. From national tragedies to personal heartbreak, we'll delve into the scientific role of one's conscience and learn how it can actually bring us closer to God.
Conscience made the news recently when a Supreme Court ruling presented Canadian doctors with an ethical dilemma. In a unanimous ruling, the court told Parliament the law must now make provision for physician-assisted suicide and possibly euthanasia. Doctors who find it unethical to actively end the life of their patients say this ruling could violate their rights of conscience. To help us understand the challenge facing Canadian doctors, we are joined in Halifax by lawyer Larry Worthen and in Vancouver by Dr. Margaret Caudle. And Larry, let's start with you. As a lawyer, you represent medical professionals, and it's been proposed that some medical professionals may be denied their charter rights to freedom of conscience when they refuse to act on a request for physician-assisted suicide. What are the legal implications for this ruling?
Well, the Supreme Court of Canada itself clearly indicated that doctors cannot be forced to perform euthanasia or any other procedure against their conscience. What the court left unstated, though, was whether or not doctors will be forced to refer, whether there could be emergency situations where doctors might be forced to actually do euthanasia, or whether or not doctors could be discriminated against because of their refusal to do these procedures. Currently, we have two colleges, provincial colleges in Canada, in Ontario and Saskatchewan, who have proposed policies that would require doctors to refer for and to actually do procedures that go against their conscience. The legal ramifications for doctors are huge. It could mean that they would be vulnerable to discipline from their provincial colleges who manage the medical practice in those provinces.
So you've already got a concern about it. Dr. Caudle, in the wake of this court decision at the Supreme Court, on what objective moral grounds can doctors refuse to perform physician-assisted suicide?
It's quite interesting that we have a 2,400-year history of patients not being killed by their physicians. This is the Hippocratic tradition. And one of the things in the Hippocratic Oath that is sadly not said very often anymore is that the physician will not give deadly medicine to anyone to cause death, even if asked. And this has been a bright line in Canadian and worldwide medical practice for years, that we do not kill patients. We got into this so that we would help patients and cure patients and come alongside patients, not to kill. So I think it's very easy to say that's not part of our job description to kill people.
Okay, but Dr. Caudle, the argument is my body, my rights. If I want to end my life early because I don't want to suffer or I don't want to go down the path of a disease, who are you to say I shouldn't have that right? What do you say to that argument then?
Okay, well, the other side has a real easy slogan. They say, my body, my life, my death, my choice. And it's a quick little soundbite, and it's very easy to have that. However, I think everyone who's listening and watching can realize that there is no such thing as a death that only affects one person. Even here in Vancouver, where we have people who are dying on our downtown east side and we don't even know them, their deaths really affect us. And so what we're talking about is not end-of-life decision-making for one person. We're talking about deciding to end life. And if you, as an individual, decide that your life is not worth living and you commit suicide, this is something, a choice that we will lament and will prevent if we can, but we can't ultimately prevent you from doing that. But that's not what this is. This is asking us as a society to agree that there are some lives that are no longer worth living, and not only to agree to that, but to actively participate in ending those lives and to support that with our resources, with our personnel, and with our legal system, which is very different from just saying, well, it's my life, I can do with it what I want to.
Because you're involving other people. Now, Larry, you tell us about the concern about doctors who refuse to refer their patients to other doctors for physician-assisted suicide. What's your worry for them?
Well, the concern is that for many of our members at the Christian Medical Dental Society, many of them feel that they just cannot refer because they feel that a referral is essentially the same as actually committing the action itself. If you refer someone, then you're actually part of the process of helping them to get the procedure, which in this case they consider to be immoral. The concern is that the policies in both of these provinces require physicians to refer, and it can very easily could very easily result in disciplinary action taken against the doctor. I want to make one point really clear, Lorna. Our members are not talking about standing in the way of people necessarily. We are open to whatever options that patients want to have within their medical care. We just say that at a certain point, we want to have the same rights as patients do to be able to say, no, we don't want to be involved in that. We understand that that's the direction you want to go in, but we just can't support it, and please don't ask us to facilitate it.
Okay. Dr. Cottle, how does it benefit Canadians if doctors are permitted to follow their conscience on this issue?
I think it always benefits all of us if we are permitted to follow our consciences on very deeply important issues. I have no trouble in informing my patients about all of the options that are available and giving them the pluses and the minuses for all of those different options. But if they want to go a direction that I feel is wrong, I should be able to follow my conscience. And the American Medical Association felt strongly enough about this that they actually wrote to the Ontario College and put forward some of the things that they had suggested there in a very clear format. And I think that this is something that all of us should be looking at.
Okay, Larry Worthen, are we looking at a legal fight to protect the rights of conscience for medical workers?
I'm afraid it will come to that. We've tried to make all kinds of representations. Thousands of people have written to the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario and the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Saskatchewan to no avail. They seem to be moving ahead, and our concern is that we will have to take legal advice and possibly start an action in order to vindicate our rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Lorna, as you know, in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we have the freedom of conscience and religious belief. But these organizations are trampling those rights, and I think the only thing we can do at this point is to join with other physicians and to try to go back to court to try to have these rights protected.
What is your advice, both of you, for patients, for families, as we make up our conscience right on this? Dr. Cottle, why don't we start with you on that?
This is a very difficult decision to have. It's also very hard to have this discussion in the abstract. It's more real if you are facing something. I think there are some fears that people have that they're afraid that they're going to die in pain. They're afraid that they're not going to have their symptoms controlled. They're afraid that they're going to be a burden. They're afraid that they're going to be alone. All of those things are things that do not have to be fears. If we as a society, if we as Canadians put enough resources and enough energy into coming alongside one another, caring for one another, providing services for one another, giving good medical care, those things do not have to be a problem. what kind of country do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a country that says when someone is suffering, when someone is in despair, for whatever reason, oh, well, maybe your life isn't worth living. Yes, we'll help you to die. Or you are important to us. Even if you are having a difficult time, we'll sort it out. We'll figure out how to get your pain under control. We'll figure out how to get your symptoms under control. We'll figure out how to help your family. That's the kind of country I want to live in.
I think that we all really need to consider what our deepest thoughts, our beliefs are on this. We need to turn to our own belief systems and say, you know, what is essential about human life? What is important about human life? And hopefully we come to the recognition that life itself is sacred and needs to be protected at all costs. I also think we need to consider the importance of having options in our society for people who don't want to run the risk of euthanasia. We need to, everyone needs to be involved in advocating to protect physician conscience rights and to protect those facilities, nursing homes, hospices, and hospitals that will want to be separate from this and not be involved. It's going to take all of us to lobby that.
An enormous issue of conscience. Thank you, Dr. Cottle and Larry Worthen, for exploring the consequences of this Supreme Court decision on conscience. Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Dr. Margaret Cottle is a palliative care physician and a member of the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. Larry Worthen is a lawyer and the executive director of the Christian Medical Dental Society. And now we'll go to Halifax, where students faced a different challenge to their conscience. We sent Sheldon Neal to the campus of Dalhousie University for that story.
I'm Sheldon Neal here in front of Dalhousie University's School of Dentistry in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And we're here looking at a story of what appears to be a lack of conscience at one of Canada's top universities.
It's a bit of a shock. I don't know these people, so I don't feel like I am personally targeted, but as a female, it's still a little bit disturbing to know that a building I walk by every day on my way to class or home from class has something like that going on inside.
The story of the lack of conscience at this school is still in legal limbo, but the lessons learned from it are underway. What do you think conscience has a role to play in our lives?
It's the little voice that tells you maybe you should not be doing this, or maybe, you know, this would be a good idea to do something, and it's helpful when you listen to it. But yeah, it kind of is a little bit of a guide.
It's something that in your head that tells you, are you doing the right thing? It makes you second guess what you're doing and kind of analyze the situation before you go into it.
Responding to one's conscience is not always an easy thing. In fact, some students here say having a conscience is one thing. Following it, well, that's another.
Conscience plays a big part, but it depends. If I'm alone and I'm analyzing the situation, then I would probably think differently than when I'm with a group of friends and someone says, hey, let's do this. I'm not gonna automatically, my conscience isn't gonna come into play.
There's always going to be consequences for your actions, whether they're good or bad. So, I don't know, personally, like I said, I've never been in a really intense situation, but I know it would be hard, and I would like to think that I would definitely do the right thing.
For Context with Lorna Duick, I'm Sheldon Neal, reporting from Halifax.
Coming up next, can thinking about God change the way you activate your conscience? That's next. Head to our website to win your free copy of What Your Body Knows About God by journalist Rob Mall. It explains how scientists are discovering ways in which our bodies are designed to connect with God. Just go to contactswithlorna.com and enter at Lorna's Books for your chance to win a free copy. Don't delay. Contactswithlorna.com and click on Lorna's Books.
This segment is brought to you by Bruce Etherington and Associates, Family Harmony and Philanthropy, helping you help others.
Our subject today is conscience. We're asking why it sometimes fails to help us make wise decisions. How do you improve or repair your conscience? Joining us from York University is Dr. Blake Martin with some insight from the field of neuroscience. And Dr. Martin, welcome to Context. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so help us understand.
All right.
Conscience is connected to the thinking process that we go through, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a very physical thing. What's going on in our body?
We're made up of cells. And so from our hands, our nails, all parts of us are made up of cells, including our brains. And our brains are physical things, and thinking is a process that happens inside of our brains or around our brains somewhere. It's electromagnetic energy that happens there. And so it's part of us. It's when our bodies act, when we move, the thoughts that we have, moral thoughts, immoral thoughts, happy thoughts, sad thoughts, they are a product of a physical body in an environment.
I pulled some of your classroom slides. We're going to play in the back. Explain how synapses are working on brain thought.
Okay, so what happens is there's like an electrical signal that moves from one end of a neuron, which is a specialized nerve cell, and it moves from one end of the neuron to another, and then it has to jump across a little gap, a little tiny space between two adjacent neurons. And when it jumps across that little gap, that's called a synapse or a synapse. And those little gaps, there's chemical messengers that go from one neuron to another. It happens very, very quickly. And some of those messengers respond to when we encounter a stimulus like fear, and some of them respond or are released when we encounter something that makes us feel loving, and some of them when we anticipate something or look forward to something. So these chemical messengers in our brain, they jump across these little spaces and they create the message between two neurons. And eventually, the whole sum of them makes up our thinking. It makes up our thought.
Okay, so when people do something stupid, like what were they thinking? Like, why didn't their conscience kick into gear?
Right.
Is there like a scientific explanation for why people's conscience isn't working sometimes?
Yeah, typically they're teenagers. And actually, there's truth in that, because there's parts of our brain that are further back and very deep inside, and they're responsible for animalistic aspects of our behavior, breathing, eating, finding a mate, things like that. And then there's other parts of our brain that are responsible for decisions and complex planning, making art, and things like that. And those two areas speak with each other. But sometimes areas that are related to fear and anger, they respond to environmental cues very strongly. And so there's a part of your brain called the amygdala, and it's very deep inside your brain, and it's very strongly related with fear. And it's quite active many times, and so it will squirt out juices that make your body feel ready to fight or run away from things. And when that happens, it's not easy always to think logically or rationally. Wow. So you're in your car, someone cuts you off, and those parts of your brain respond to that. They see it as a threat. Or your boss comes in and he shouts at you or something like that, and you see it as a threat. And naturally, what you want to do is you want to run away from the thing or kill it. And you're not really allowed to run away from your boss or kill him. So you feel stressed, you have these stressful feelings.
But you sometimes might make a bad decision in your conscience that you could whack your kid or something like that.
Absolutely. And we all hope that we're never going to respond badly, but sometimes we do. Sometimes the stimulus and the situation is so strong that we feel compelled to act against our better judgment.
Okay, so the teachings of Jesus challenge us to let our minds be renewed by God. Is it possible that the teachings of God, reading the Bible, thinking about a path to God, a relationship with Jesus, can actually physically alter the patterns in my brain?
That's a complex and wonderful question. So there's a particular passage. There's in Romans 12, 1 and 2. Don't be conformed any longer. Therefore, brothers and sisters, don't be conformed any longer to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you can test and approve what is God's will, his perfect and pleasing will. The scripts that we run in our minds, so our brains that give rise to our minds and ourselves and our consciousness, they have the possibility of perceiving the world as it is right now. So you can see what's going on around you, but you can also imagine, you can think about things that could be or might be or have been. And we rehearse these things in our minds, and this is part of our self. Part of the self comes from this. This is Antonio Damasio. He's a famous neuroscientist who thinks about the self a lot. And he realizes that we can reflect on this past that we've had or a possible future. We can look in either direction. And so the past that we rehearse or the future that we rehearse, those things that we rehearse over and over again, they actually influence our thinking. They change the synapses that we actually have by rehearsing them. So if you rehearse being angry, you think about that person who cut you off. Boy, they better not cut me off again. If that ever happens again, I'm telling you. And we rehearse what will happen. And so when it does happen, when they cut us off again, we've rehearsed it. We've rehearsed those neural pathways again and again, and it's more natural to react in anger. Wow. By contrast, if you've been meditating or considering or thinking about peaceful things, thinking about nature or scriptures, those things can become part of your rehearsal process too. And so they become part of the natural, not natural, but they become part of the programmed response that you have to a stimulus.
So what's your advice if I just want a better conscience?
Jesus does instruct us to reflect on beautiful things too, but he asks us to, he asks us to rehearse loving people. And it's interesting, all of his words are about considering how we might act differently. And the Sermon on the Mount is an incredible example of that, being asked to think very differently than what we have been asked to think in the past.
You've given me some advice here today. That I can shape my conscience.
Yes.
By putting the ideas of Christ in it.
Yes, but don't try to rehearse at the moment that you're angry.
Right.
That's a really bad time to learn the part. You don't throw a child into a raging sea and say, learn how to swim now. You put water wings on them and you get them to swim when it's calm.
So is that where your mind can actually change because it's been pre-rehearsed with the ideas of Christ?
So plasticity is happening all the time. So it's simply that the brain is always changing. It's changing to meet the demands that we place on it. And if you place demands on it to be better at being angry or better at being fearful, it will go in that direction. If you start placing demands on it to be more kind, it will move in that direction, sometimes very slowly, sometimes a glacial pace, particularly if there's hard things in our lives. And some of us have experienced incredibly difficult things in our lives that make it hard to move beyond anger. We need help or encouragement. But the reflecting on beautiful things and the reflecting on being kind in times when it's not critical, when it's not the crisis moment, when the stimulus is in front of us, in those moments, then we have a better chance of having the neurons. When we're practicing and rehearsing in the calm moments, we have a better chance that the neurons are going to start adapting those patterns.
Dr. Blake Martin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Sheldon. Conscience. Has your conscience ever convicted you of something recently?
You know, that's an interesting question, Lorna. I have to say, not recently, but I think we've all gone through that time where we feel the tug of war inside of us, and sometimes choosing right or wrong, and sometimes it's a little bit harder than we think, especially as Dr. Blake Martin so eloquently has said, when we're in the in that raging water in the moment. But we do our best, and I do my best, Lorna, to choose the right way. But I want you to choose a specific way watching at home. Here's a question for you who are watching. Tell us about how you hear your conscience. We want you to write to us at comments@contextwithlorna.com, or feel free to leave a message on Facebook or Twitter. We'd love to hear from you.
Next, just how discerning should we be about the source material for our conscience? My thoughts on that when we return.
I'm Rose Meter. I'm a mom, a wife, and an ER doctor in rural Canada. This year, my husband Rob and I have decided to take our 4 kids on a trip around the world. We have no idea what lies ahead. I'll be updating our journey on the Context with Lorna Duick website with blog posts and videos about our triumphs and trials and adventures. Won't you join us?
Here at Context, we love to hear from you, our viewers at home. Recently, David wrote, "Your show is ridiculous. Hopefully no tax dollars are funding this garbage." Well, David, you'll be happy to know that our show is entirely funded by our viewers, and we'd like to take this opportunity to say how much we appreciate your donations to help us share Christian stories. Thank you for helping us make television we can all be proud of. Well, everyone except for David. Missed an episode? Catch up with our podcasts. Get up to date on the latest conversations from beyond the headlines. Simply go to our website, click on our link to find current and past podcasts on iTunes. It's free, don't delay. Pick any variety of headline in the news, and you'll often discover events unfolded because somebody's conscience evaporated. Some stories are how conscience kicked into gear and wrongs were corrected, even heroism enacted. Conscience is a big deal in our world, and we need to value sources that teach us to care about it. So why go to the teachings of Jesus for conscience care? Because Jesus is source material for the idea that all people are to be loved at all times. Jesus modeled that by giving his own life to repair the human condition, a divine gift offering everyone forgiveness. Jesus, the source of our own recovery, affects our own ability to love others if we can process the teachings of Jesus. Our brains actually change, our behavior changes, and Jesus becomes the source of the conscience that enables us to love. Something to think about there for all of us. I'm Lorna Duick. Thanks for watching, and join us next week as we explore life beyond the headlines. Head to our website to win your free copy of What Your Body Knows About God by journalist Rob Mall. It explains how scientists are discovering ways in which our bodies are designed to connect with God. Just go to contextwithlorna.com and enter at Lorna's Books for your chance to win a free copy. Don't delay. Contextwithlorna.com and click on Lorna's Books.
Yes, I would say I believe that God created my conscience, and I feel like the reason why would just be where I get my moral compass from, or anyone would, because you obviously don't want to hurt anyone, and anytime there's a decision or situation, you just kind of fall back on that and base it off of what God wants for you and put on your heart. So I would say that would be the reason why I believe it.
It's not too late to send us your comments. Voicemail, email, Facebook, or Twitter. The conversation continues.